Hello, and welcome to the Flix Forum Podcast, where each episode we go back and look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today, we're jumping a little bit out of order to give you a special bonus episode. Today, we have Netflix's 195th film. It's the 2019 epic crime film, The Irishman. It's directed by Martin Scorsese, and it stars Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci. I'm Jesse, and I'm here with my co-host MJ. But we also wanted to make this a little bit more epic, so we've got some regulars back and another special guest. So we've got Heater with us and Simo. Welcome.
Hey mate, it's good to be back.
Same here. It feels only a few days ago, but
I remember
back.
complaining.
Been a while.
I was complaining when Heater first wandered off the podcast that there was so much room on this side of the table, and now I'm so cramped.
You up.
I also don't know where to look. I think I'm just going to stare at our microphone this whole time. But this is very exciting.
Whose eyes are we supposed to look at?
I know, because like we
just
have good eye contact. Yeah, it's important.
So yeah, we're excited about this one, and it is a big film, so it's possibly going to be a big podcast. We start our show off with our Fast Flicks, where we do our own short little summary of what the film's about. Heater, it's your turn to start us
Jeez,
off.
straight back into it.
Yes.
All right, so The Irishman. The story of Frank, the Irishman Sheeran, a war veteran and truck driver turned mob hitman, and his relationship with union leader Jimmy Hoffa.
Good. Got all the characters in there.
Like it.
MJ.
A film of epic proportions covering Frank Sheeran's story of his connections with the mob and work as a hitman, spanning 40 plus years.
Nice. Simo.
Awesome. Well, you know, I pride myself on my fast flicks. This is a big one, but we'll see how we go. The Irishman is a gangster movie in the way that is more about a life of a gangster. We meet Frank Sheeran, and spanning across his entire adult life, starting 1950s Philly, we see how he balances power, family, and loyalty, mostly by shooting people in the face.
There we go.
We like a bit of humour.
I like it.
Shooting people in the face. And I'm last. So I've said it's a gangster epic that needs to be seen rather than hear my summary.
Ooh, wow. So we do this
do like
bonus
that.
episode. We're trying to have a bit of fun with it.
Really just the short way out there, Jesse.
Real cryptic.
I enjoy that one.
I don't. That usually I'm straight to the point.
I'm very
but this one
excited
I'm
to
like,
hear
nah.
what
Well,
you're
you're
going to
kind of
say
straight
now.
to the point because, in a sense, this film is almost bigger than the film itself.
Yeah.
Like, the idea of The Irishman is just as big as The Irishman, so I like the way you've captured that.
Thank you, MJ. So this has so much going for it at the moment, and there's so much to sort of know a little bit about the background. MJ, anyone would like to kick us off with what we know about The Irishman?
Well, you're right. It's actually a pleasure to be able to scour for some information about a film and basically pick and choose what information you want to use, because some of the films that we've done on this podcast have had very little and we've had to work pretty hard to get it. But doing a film as big as this, and also doing a film that's actually out right now, that's one of the things that we haven't done as well. A film that's out right now gives us plenty to look at. So The Irishman is based on a book written by Charles Brandt called I Heard You Paint Houses. The book itself is based somewhat loosely on the real life of Frank. What's your thoughts on what you know about how real or true this story actually is, Jesse?
I guess there's a lot of disagreement about the actual truth behind this story and what actually happened. So it's, as MJ said, it's based on the book, and there's a lot of people that have criticised the book for not necessarily telling the truth, because especially with, and we're going to spoil this film.
Oh yeah, good call.
We should
Good
probably
call.
put it out there now.
Spoiler alert.
If you haven't seen The Irishman and you are keen on watching it, go and watch it before listening to this, because
It's not very long, so you'll be able to punch it out pretty quickly.
I did it in a night. It was fine.
But yeah, so there's a lot of disagreement about a few of the kills that happen in this film, especially by Frank, and this is based on Frank's almost real life deathbed confessions to the author of this book. So since the book was released, there's been a few people who have said, look, he couldn't have taken out these hits or these kills. We've got evidence to say otherwise. So there is a little bit of a disagreement between that.
Yeah.
But and obviously the cast in this is a huge cast, and when you hear them talk about this film, a lot of them say, look, let's forget about that anyway, because this is the story that we're telling, and it's about this story, not about actually what happened.
I think that's important to know as well. At the end of the day, when I was watching this film, I actually didn't know it was based on a true story. I knew it was based on a book, didn't know that was a true story. So it functions fine as a narrative here. So the idea is that Robert De Niro read the book back in 2004, mind you. and was basically just like, yeah, we kind of need to make this film. And then Martin Scorsese slowly became interested in directing that adaptation, and he obviously wanted to do it with the cast that he ended up getting. So
It's about 2007. So
2007
it's a
is when
project.
when the film started the development phase. So 2007, we're talking 2019. This film released. So in October 2015, De Niro stated that the film was happening, and they could start filming in 2016. And they got Steven Zalian as the screenwriter. And then cross forward to May 2016. This is where it all gets kind of a bit tricky. So Mexican production company Fabrica de Sign offered $100 million to finance the film. And they had a deal with Paramount Pictures that they would get the domestic rights in America. IM Global was also trying to get the film's international sales rights. So then STX Entertainment bought the international rights to distribute the film for $50 million, beating out a whole bunch of other big name studios like Universal, Fox, Lionsgate, etc. And then the deal was closed with Fabrica Decline closing the deal with Paramount actually retaining those domestic rights. So this is in 2016.
Before you go any further, so in 2015, just before this sort of whole deal sort of started, Scorsese and De Niro did like a little test reel of this film, just because obviously they wanted to see if this de-aging technology could work. So they recreated a scene from Goodfellas together just to see if they could use the technology to do this.
Well, that was a big part about actually wanting to do this film, is that they could get that technology right.
And they needed to, because it plays such a big part in this film.
Yeah. So by February 2017, Paramount had dropped the domestic distribution rights for The Irishman, off the back of the announcement that Fabrica would not be financing the film due to the fact that the budget kept going up for making The Irishman. So then Netflix came in. They bought the film rights for $105 million, and they agreed to finance the film's $125 million budget at the time, and they projected to have a release date of October 2019. So in March the following year, so 2018, it was reported that the film's budget had actually ballooned to $140 million, due in large part to the visual effects that they needed to make the de-aging and make them appear younger throughout various points of the film. And then by August that year, there was speculation that the budget had gone as high as $175 million by the time that post-production was said to have been wrapped. In August this year, 2019, it was reported that the official cost was $159 million.
It's a lot of money.
Wow.
It's a ton of money. In fact.
Here we go.
Comparisons. What films cost?
So just for some context of how much $159 million is for a film.
Are there some Michael Bay movies on this list?
Not quite.
No?
But this is the 155th highest production budget in history. It's the most expensive Scorsese film ever. Nothing else is $159 million, believe it or not. It's quite a specific number. But there's plenty that are 160. And you're talking about the level of Beauty and the Beast live action, Spider-Man Far From Home this year, Aquaman, Inception, the final Hunger Games movie, Fast and Furious 6, X-Men First Class. Big superhero movies. This is the kind of budget that we're talking about for this film.
When you say it like that, it doesn't, like, to me, it's like when you say 159 million, you're like, wow, this is so much money. But then when you say those films, I'm like, oh, okay, it doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah, but we know that those films cost a truckload to make, and they make a lot of money back off merchandise and other licensing. So.
And being in theatres.
And obviously being in theatres.
In all theatres.
Getting actual box office. So there's just a brief summary of how we got to this point with this film, and more specifically how Netflix got involved in this film as well. It's obviously a huge venture for Netflix to jump on a film like this with a budget like this, knowing that it's not going to be probably as everyone would want to watch it in the cinema.
Yep.
But it's them putting their hat in the ring saying, we want the biggest films possible, and we think that audiences is skewing that they want to watch big box office films at home on their own sort of opening night. And
Just
probably going to be a sign
of how they want to watch it.
It's probably going to be a sign of things to come.
So what did you think about so it's based on the book called I Heard You Paint Houses, and De Niro wanted to keep that title for the film. So the opening of this film, you don't get the Irishman at the start.
Notice that.
You get the title, like in, cut blocks, I heard you paint houses. What did you think of that?
I actually, when I watched it, thought it was going to be like a chapter type thing.
Yep.
And I thought the film was going to be broken down in almost like Tarantino-esque
Yeah,
type
I thought the same.
phases. So I didn't think of it as much at the time, and then by the time I actually thought about it, I realised that was the name of the book, so it was almost like a nice homage.
Yeah, it was good. So this was shot in 117 different locations
Insane.
and has a total of 319 scenes.
Yep.
That is ridiculous. That is, and we've said it's a long film, but it's nearly 3.5 hours.
Took 106 days to film as
106
well.
days.
It's the longest shooting schedule in Scorsese's career.
Yeah, out of control. Out of control. But obviously, you want that to create this sort of massive story that he tells. Otherwise, you wouldn't get it done.
So here's the deal, right? Who's going to A, finance this film, and B, let it be 3.5 hours, if not someone like Netflix? And we know from being on this podcast that directors have such a long leash with what they want to do. And the reason that they enjoy working with Netflix is because Netflix go, you've got a vision, you've got an idea, off you go do it. There's no way that this is 3.5 hours if it's going to be a theatrical release for Paramount. It's just not going to happen.
No.
So Scorsese gets a chance to make the film that he wants to make. And we're talking about one of the greatest auteurs of our generation. So we're pretty lucky in that sense that he got to do it.
Can't agree more. A couple of other little things. So Joe Pesci. So Joe Pesci is amazing, and
We love Joe Pesci.
he was
the
asked,
game for a
he
while.
wanted to be like, they wanted him in this film.
Yeah.
They wanted him in this really badly, and they wanted him out of retirement. And some sources say that he was asked about 50 times to do this film before he finally said yes.
Scorsese apparently said it was over 50,
Over 50.
in the end. He
That's
had to ask him.
persistent.
Yeah. But
That's insane.
you couldn't do it without him, though.
Nah.
No.
Now that you see him in there, because he was amazing in this, and Pesci is like, he's just a gangster.
Yeah.
Like, from all those movies, you couldn't do it without him.
I thought too, and if you've seen some of these behind the scene things with Scorsese and stuff, they show there's some shots with how they actually filmed it with the cameras, and it's quite incredible that to do these de-aging effects, like they literally had like that sort of pen that they did the markers on the face instead of using these sort of like things that you used to, the golf ball sort of things, and they had like 3 cameras to sort of get all the angles. It was just incredible that we have technology that can do that.
So the anti-aging stuff was something that they knew they could do prior to this part of the technology being available. But as you said, you had to have these like golf ball things on your face. And we're talking about a director who is so into his actors completely stealing the show. And Scorsese was just like, we can't do it like that because I need my actors to be feeding off each other. I need their facial expressions to be almost more important than what they're saying. So when this technology became available, that was a game changer for actually being able to make this movie what it was.
Yeah. It's still in cinemas.
It is,
It is
yeah.
still in select cinemas, but at this stage, as of our recording, it's made about 6.6 million worldwide at the box office.
So we should say we are recording this on the 4th of December.
Yeah.
And
Bit of context behind it.
so it's been out on Netflix for a week, just over a week. No, a week, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, a week, exactly.
Geez, we didn't mess around, did we?
No, we got into it straight away.
So is that about a month out here in cinemas?
In cinemas, yeah. So start of November, I
Yes,
think.
yeah, start of November, I'm pretty sure it came out.
Because I know they said it was like 8 select screenings in America when it first came out, and there was just tales of people driving, across state lines, to make sure they could see this movie in
But
cinemas.
that's because the biggest chains don't want to touch it.
Yeah.
They don't agree with the Netflix strategy because the legislation in place, which I think is more of a gentleman's agreement than an actual legislation.
Apart
is
from
that-
France.
Apart from France, is that there's a 60-day gap between being in cinemas and being on a streaming service. And I guess Netflix is a competitor for a theatre, and they kind of don't see the value in...
Yeah. It was
money for it.
30 days to the date that it premiered in New York, or wherever, I think it was New York, and then from there to Netflix, it was 30 days exactly. So they must have made some deal with that it was, we'll give you 30 days in cinemas before we put it out.
But if you're an independent cinema in whatever country, you'd be crazy not to have it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to get you value.
So last week in New York, they set up Little Italy in Manhattan
Oh yeah.
for a couple of days, and they backdated it to like 1975, the day that
That's
that Hoffa
awesome.
disappeared, and
Yeah.
they had like newspaper art. It looked really cool from
That'd
what
be
I've seen.
awesome.
Did any of you guys know the story of Jimmy Hoffa?
Nah.
No.
Do you know the name?
Not at all.
Nah, I've never heard of it before.
I didn't
Nah.
either, no.
Never
I
heard
thought
of it.
some of the history around the time in America with the JFK,
The politics stuff,
and
yeah.
the Cuba and everything like that kind of resonated. But when they said, what Hoffa was as popular as Elvis.
Yeah.
Saying like
second most powerful man to the president.
Yeah. I'd never heard his name before.
Did you know it was based on a true story, or did you think they were creating this fictional?
I did know it was based on a true story.
Okay.
Yeah, I did know that.
I kind of going through. I'm like, well, it's based in a time where it's true, but is this person real? And I had to look up, and I got questions as we go because at the end I felt a bit like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood of feelings with like the story, but if not adding characters, like adding a little bit of the plot and
For sure. Yeah.
it was.
Yeah. So we mentioned this before. So it debuted at the New York Film Festival, and it's played 16 other festivals since then.
Geez, that was quick.
Which is a lot of festivals. Plus, it's had a limited release in 27 countries before hitting November 27th Netflix. So it debuted in September, so it's 2 months, not a month, like I said before. So 2 months in cinemas before, bang, we're popping on Netflix. It's a different way of doing things.
It's taking the world by storm. That's the crazy thing. The only thing I want to add, though, did you guys know that Pierce Brosnan and Liam Neeson were both considered for the role of Frank?
I read that the other
Really?
day.
Obviously, the Irish side, the Irish factor.
I'm glad they didn't.
So what they had the name, and they didn't want to change because the Irishman. Is there like a story? Is it like Irish Catholic, that area? Like obviously
but
it's Little
I
Italy.
think Frank was kind of known as the Irishman.
Yeah.
Or he was known as Irish, or
So they might try and get an actual Irish actor to play the
well,
Irishman.
this was when they didn't think they were going to get Pesci.
Yeah.
In which case, De Niro would have played Russell.
Yeah.
So that's kind of they needed a fallback for Frank, and it would have been interesting.
I can maybe see Liam Neeson. I couldn't see Pierce Brosnan playing that role.
I see. I'm almost the opposite.
Yeah?
I can see if you put Liam Neeson in this, I feel like I'm watching Taken or Nonstop.
Yeah.
Like all those films that are exactly
Narnia.
the same. not Narnia.
What? It's the lion in Narnia. Come on.
Yeah, he's. I was definitely thinking more along the Taken and.
It'd be nice to get a
Middle
bit
lines.
of 007 Brosnan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan's a
in his
different
back
man
end.
now. Like
Yeah.
007 is a long time ago, and I don't know. I can sort of see it.
Yeah.
So it's early days yet, and obviously Oscar season is sort of starting to kick off with little sort of award seasons happening already. But so far, this has already had 7 wins and 22 nominations in the festival circuit. It's gone
Not
so
bad.
far, the award circuit.
What
Crazy.
have we got?
It's going to grow.
Anything?
I didn't even write any down because I'm like, no, we're just going to wait. We're going to wait.
And you know what? If you're listening to this podcast in 2 or 3 months' time, it might have some more important wins
It may.
than what it's got right now.
Should we have a look at the consensus so far about
Yeah.
what critics and the general population are saying?
You want to know what gets me about this? Obviously, the consensus is incredible. It's got an 8.3 out of 10 on IMDb, but it's had 80,000 ratings already. This has been out on Netflix for a week.
Yeah.
When did you write that down?
That's a good
changed,
question. That's a
hasn't
good
it?
question.
'Cause, yeah,
Probably
when-
a couple of days.
Yeah, okay, so I went on, I was like, I need to do this just before.
That's a very good point.
It's already up to nearly 87,000
That's
as of this
insane.
afternoon.
Wow.
So it's a 7,000 in a couple of days. Extra people have gone
It's
on
crazy.
IMDb.
And we did a film, we did films for over the Podmas period where we were lucky to get sometimes 1,000 ratings, and these are films that have been out for 2 years. Granted, this is different scale, right? That's why we're doing a bonus podcast on it. But anyway, 8.3 out of 10. It's a 4.2 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I've got 55,000 ratings, but I'm sure that's gone up, Jesse.
It's nearly 59.
So it's a beast. It's a beast, and everyone loves it. Is
Rotten
it
Tomatoes?
Rotten Tomatoes,
Rotten Tomatoes,
our old friend.
Our old friend, our least favourite friend. 96% on 341 reviews. So that's pretty high in amount of reviews and
It is
percentage. The audience is at 86 on just under 1,000. So the audience isn't getting on Rotten Tomatoes to log this.
That's because Rotten Tomatoes
Who cares about Rotten Tomatoes,
is not
Jesse?
a credible source.
No one cares
you're
about
a
it.
big listener of Flix Forum, you'll realise that Rotten Tomatoes offers very little if you're trying to figure out what's good and what's not in a film, because a lot of people don't use it.
Last one I've got
got
here,
shit.
my Google users
Oh,
percentage.
no, this has to be 100.
89%.
What?
Yeah.
Google uses the most positive thing I've ever seen.
I know, I'm like 89%. That's really low. Really low.
Okay.
The one thing I got about the kind of consensus stuff, and I guess with now that this film's out on Netflix, obviously your standard movie buff for the people that are reviewing it on your IMDb and your Letterboxd and stuff like that. With the Netflix kind of attraction and what just the sheer numbers that this movie's doing, I know the consensus is really positive, but you look on Twitter and there's obviously a bit of a push kind of the other way, and I'm not saying like whether I like or dislike, but there's a lot of stuff that, that's coming out, but just because it's Scorsese and De Niro and Pacino, there's almost like a pull that you need to kind of like this movie.
Yeah, it's cool to like it, or you got those big old glasses sort of thing.
Yeah, and then there's just like, stuff now like on the internet. It's not on IMDb or Twitter, just people kind of discussing the movie and kind of a bit of like this feel that, if you don't get it, you don't appreciate it. That like, it's just this masterpiece kind of feel.
Yeah, if you say you don't like it, it's because you're an idiot. Or you don't get.
You don't understand movies if you don't like this.
Because you're right. That happens a lot in movies, right? Where everyone's like, look, every Oscar film, for example, it's like that one Best Picture. It's like, oh, I wonder why that one Best. Oh, you didn't get it. It's alright. But it's an excellent film. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And it feels like you see that, and you get that a lot about the Best Picture kind of noms and stuff. And they're movies that are like maybe not a lot of people have seen.
Yeah.
And I feel like the conversation around this one's slightly different because just the access to the movie and how many people are going to be able to watch it and kind of weigh in on the conversation.
Yeah. It's tricky because it's almost the opposite story of Roma last year. Like Roma, Netflix put so much behind to get it that Best Picture nomination, and a lot of people enjoyed it. And then you've got the same sort of story, but that sort of outweighed the positivity of it.
Well, Roma was almost this underground film that did well because it had good talk about it, whereas this was never going to be underground, right? This is like this is their Marvel kind of thing. We want as many people as we can to watch this movie.
I think we're probably good to look at our early thoughts on this film and start getting into the crux of the actual film.
I'm excited. And that's what you say, Simo. Like, there's lots of chatter online, and that's what we want to do as well. We just want to talk about what we thought about this film and what we liked and what we didn't like.
All right, Heater, I want you to start with your... I just want to... You're back, so I want you to tell us, what are your early thoughts on this film?
What do you think I thought of it, Jesse?
I think I could probably work it out, but go. I want to hear from your...
So this came out on the Wednesday over here.
Yep.
So I watched it on the Friday night.
Which is what we were doing Wednesday and Thursday.
I can't go to bed that late. Like it's too long to go to bed that late. So
You're a new man, Nate.
I watched it on the Friday night, and look, I loved it. It was amazing. I mean, I think we said on the first podcast, Scorsese is one of my favorite directors. I love De Niro, Pacino, and Pesci. I love mobster gangster movies. This just took you back to like the Goodfellas days. I thought it was amazing. Loved it.
MJ?
Like, I'm probably different to Heater in that I'm not really a gangster movie kind of guy. I don't mind them, but I don't love them. But this was impressive. It's not the greatest film I've ever seen. It's not even the best film I've seen this year. But I appreciated its proportions, just the size, the scale, the tech, the story behind it. The fact that it's the first appointment viewing that I've had with streaming. The first movie that it's had an opening night feel to it, and I wanted to be a part of it. And that's always what I've loved about going to movies and seeing a big movie on opening night, because it's more than just a film sometimes. The 3.5 hours didn't really faze me, apart from finding the time to watch it. I really don't think that Scorsese wasted a scene in this, and the length worked for the story that he was telling. But it still requires a commitment from the audience, which shouldn't be sneezed at, right? Like you need to want people to watch your movie, and if that's going to be a barrier, the performances we'll get into later on, but they were truly fantastic. So
good, some lengthy early thoughts.
It's the best time to talk about it.
Simo, your turn.
A little bit similar on some of the things. I think I'm glad that I watched it in one part. And that's not to say that it isn't too long, and I think we can maybe talk about that later. But I think where the movie shone for me was in the story, like telling of this man Frank, and kind of this very drawn out beginning and end as a mobster and as a father, and the tough decisions he had to make, all coming together in the end, and just like how he reflected on this and whether he needed to apologize or even feel regret for some of his actions. And it was almost important to get all of what happens to feel that at the end.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I think in saying this, you could maybe be conflicted about how they did it, and in some ways whether everything was needed or if it might have been anticlimactic at certain points. But at the end, I kind of felt like just the weight of the movie and the length and the progression was where the payoff was for me. And
that's how it works.
It was a I don't know if slog's the right word. It was just a mammoth thing to kind of go into, but it's hard not to enjoy it as it goes on and kind of be invested in a lot of the stuff.
The funny thing is, how often are you watching? Let's use Netflix as an example. I know you, Heater, watch a lot of TV. How often do you sit there one night after work and start watching a series that's hour episodes and you punch out 3 or 4 that night anyway? So
it just happens.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, jeez, I need to go to
It's
bed.
easier because
it's midnight and I've watched 4 hours of TV straight.
It's different when you know that. Like you
you
don't
know
have to
the
commit.
movie
You
is
don't
this,
have to
yeah.
commit.
Yeah.
Like you're just watching it as it goes. But sitting down and watching TV for 3 or 4 hours, not uncommon.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it's very easy to do.
We're in binge society.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of went viral, like one of these pictures, and I shared to you guys about how you could break it up into kind of 4 episodes.
I did see that,
And I think potentially a
could've-
lot
it
of
definitely
people
could've, yeah.
will do that.
It's hard to find the time for
Yeah.
3.5 hours straight.
And I'm not
Did
sure.
you watch it all in one go? Sorry.
No, I didn't. I watched it Friday night and Saturday night,
Yeah.
almost 1 hour and 45 each,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay.
And it'd be interesting to see if, people enjoyed it that way more, or if there's a consensus that, you get the weight of it by watching it all.
Yeah.
But
I generally don't like watching movies breaking them up. I don't like
Yeah.
it. But in this case, I just kind of had to. And I wasn't planning on it. I was just getting tired and nothing to do with the film. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I
See,
get it.
I actually was planning on watching this over 2 nights. Like I kind of went in going. On the Friday night, I'm going to watch the first 2 hours, and then I'll go to bed, and I'll wake up and watch the other hour and a half tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I was planning on breaking it up, and then I just got into it and went, oh no, I'm just going to push through for the whole 3.5 hours. But yeah, I originally went in thinking I'm breaking this up over 2 nights, because 3.5 hours is just a long time.
It doesn't take away from it though. From
Oh, absolutely not.
It
No.
actually didn't take
No.
away from it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You get back into it straight.
With a lot of Netflix films, you have to break up because they're so bad. But this one, you do it by choice.
There's a lot of good Netflix. Hey, if you're a first-time listener, there's a lot of good Netflix films out there that you wouldn't have discovered.
Yeah. All right, my turn. So
this movie didn't feel as long as The
No,
Outside.
no.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's true.
okay. So my thoughts.
Come on, Jesse.
This I thought was an epic masterpiece. I thought the performances, the story, the way the story's built, I loved it. That's all I'm saying so far.
Okay, so that's why you're
you
having
watch
to
it
go
in
at
one
me.
go?
So you didn't like us having this big conversation about our early
Not the-
thoughts because you wanted to get your one line.
They're not early thoughts. They're like thoughts.
Yeah,
Watch
it's
it
a long
one go?
film.
Huh?
One go for you?
No, I did 20.
You split movies up a bit.
I do. I did 20 minutes on the Friday night, and I was so exhausted that I was like, I want to give this the proper time, and then I watched the rest in one go.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you didn't rewatch the first 20?
No.
Okay.
So you didn't watch it on double time like you do something?
No,
No, not for this podcast. Jesse never watches on double
He never
time.
does.
Nah, yeah. Whew, yeah. All right. So we like to talk about characters because this one is definitely a character piece, and I think there are so many characters in this film, but I think we're probably going to focus on the main sort of important ones in this story.
Yep.
So MJ, I want you to kick us off with this one.
Well, there's only one that you can start on, right? I really enjoyed. Sorry, we're
Who are you
going
talking
Frank.
about? Oh, Frank. Okay. Cool.
I really enjoyed the introduction to Frank because they do introduce him as a really likable character. From the truck breaking down to the courtroom with Ray Romano's character, to him recounting the war, he's just his own man. He likes people, but he doesn't go out of his way to make people like him initially. If you don't like him, cool, I don't care, it's fine. But his loyalty was so cheap. He was, by the end of the film, basically just a yes man. And it left him isolated and it left him alone. And it kind of bothered me with my investment in the story that he had the chance to do something about Jimmy but didn't. Because, real friendships mean more than anything. But I do like the idea that the majority of the people in this film had no idea when they were going to die, when their end was coming, and Frank was left basically waiting for it and planning for it by the end because of some of the pretty ordinary decisions that he made throughout his life.
Yeah, I feel they set him up as a bad man from the start, and he didn't change from that, and I liked that because they did, like you mentioned, they did an excellent job of making you sympathise with him, and you didn't want to dislike him, even though that's what you should be doing with this guy.
He was likeable.
You should dislike him.
Couldn't dislike him.
I get that.
I loved him.
I understand the film that you're not like you can't dislike him, but
You like
in
this guy and
society,
you know he's
if he's
bad
living
dude.
next door, you're not going to like that guy for the things that he does. And
But if you're living next door to him, you probably don't know the things that he does.
Yeah.
True. So early on, they do it really early with his job in the meat industry with the truck, and he's a working class man. They like to bring that up. He's got these Italian connections with Russ, but they do try to show you they do this early too. They show you that he's afraid of dying, and they do that through these flashbacks of the war and things like that. And he says, if anyone tells you that they're not afraid of dying, they're lying to you. So to me, this analogy was that he was constantly at war his whole life, whether that was from those World War experiences he's had, or whether that was at war with people in his life, whether it was his family, whether it was the people in this gang sort of situation. And he believed in solidarity. So he was a bad man, but they did enough little things to sort of make you connect with him. That's where I was feeling with him.
So why did he keep doing these bad things?
He was just loyal.
But he wasn't loyal to his family.
He was loyal to the mob.
We became his family.
Yeah, they became it. Like, Russell became his family, and
They made it.
He was just loyal to them.
And they built this up by saying, like, most American soldiers spent like 80 days or whatever out at war, and he spent like 400 and something.
Yeah.
So they built this up that he was almost like, not brainwashed, but his mindset was, I do what I'm told. I follow orders because that's the right thing.
That's a great point.
Anyone have anything else about Frank?
No, I agree with
I think it was almost like you could sympathise with this working class, even though he was a bit of a crook and a mobster. And it wasn't until that first time where he kind of stuffed up
with the meat.
They had the meat, but then he was casing the wrong joint that was owned by the other boss. Where I think was that his first time where he killed someone.
Yeah.
And then I think he talks about how he quickly had more jobs and more things to do, and I think his path into kind of the darkness and being this go-to person in the mob, like, it changed.
It was so
dramatic
easy
from there.
It was so easy, like, even to the point where he took that money from Whispers. That was the point when he killed
Yeah, Whispers.
And they're just like, oh no, you did the wrong thing. He's like, oh, okay, sorry, I'll just back with you guys. Whatever you guys want me to do, I'll do. And it's just that lack of backbone.
to give back the money as well,
he's
kind
like,
of thing.
He's like, he's not going to need it.
Yeah.
You keep it.
Yeah. And then that's what
That was really cool though, saying he won't need it.
And that's
he didn't get it the first time. It's like, he's not going to need it. Like,
you got it. You got it the first time, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
And that's why, and I'm creeping in on scenes here, but that when he had that opportunity to save Hoffa, when he found out that this was going to be the end for Hoffa, that's when I was most excited in this film. That's when I'm like, this is it. This is a crossroad for Frank, and it just completely highlights the character that he is. That he'd do anything just for that loyalty, and it's
he's the loyal hitman, but loyal to the mob, not other friends and family.
And he's left with absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And what I liked about the character in the end, almost, it was this point of, is it reckoning? Is he coming to terms with everything? Obviously, he's trying to reach out to his daughter a little bit. He's talking to the priest, but I'm not sure what you guys kind of take away, but I still kind of didn't feel if he turned a corner or where he was, and he's still this. He was still the same person.
He didn't say anything to the policeman. That was his chance, right? Where he could have come clean with everything, but his loyalty was even there beyond the grave.
They set it up multiple opportunities at the end for him to change, and they didn't. And usually I like a film that shows progression in a character, but the way they set this up, I didn't care that they kept him that whole way.
What do you think? And I'm probably encroaching, but let's talk about it now. Him leaving the door open at the end.
I've got that in my themes.
Yeah,
my ideas.
All right, we could talk about it. It's a great discussion point.
Yeah, I've got that for later on. All right, next character. Who are we gonna? This could be contentious. Who have you got as your second character?
Well, I'm gonna say purely because he appeared on screen before him. We can talk about Russell.
Okay. Did you have Russ next?
I would have said,
yeah. Did you have Russ next?
Well, we don't see Pacino for the first hour.
46 minutes.
46 minutes, so yeah.
Okay, cool.
I loved Russell's real commanding presence that he just had. Always calm, always in control, never got his hands dirty. There's just something about that character where you sit there and go, how did you get in?
He's actually such a small stature kind of guy. He doesn't have the physical presence like to scare anyone, but I mean, he
demands the respect.
Yeah. And he... As well, talking about how they had to ask Joe Pesci 50 times to get it. Like, no one can play that role. He's played that role so many times as kind of that creepy, like the gangster, but the one in command. He plays it so well that you believe that all these people are scared of him, of this small, tiny guy.
Well, this was even much more subdued than those roles.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was what was so good about it.
I thought the best way to describe him was envious. And to me, he represented, or he wanted everything that Frank had. He couldn't have kids. He was older, so he couldn't be out there doing the stuff that Frank was doing himself. So to me, he was this envious sort of guy. And, he's always telling, or like trying to win over Peggy. He's always trying to. He's always telling Frank, keep your family close, because this is something that he doesn't experience. He's got a wife, yes, but he doesn't have the kids. He doesn't have the family, so he's living almost what he wanted through Frank, and that's how I read
It's
him.
an interesting take.
Yeah.
Because when you said envious, the first thing you think of when you think of Russell is not an envious guy. You
No,
think of a guy
no,
who's so in control. And but look, it's a really interesting point, and I think that the point you make about Frank's kids, and particularly with Peggy, not resonating at all with Russell, is almost the juxtaposition with Jimmy and the opposite, and how you got these two characters who are polar opposites in that respect. And who is the good guy in this film? I mean, arguably there's not many, but I think there's a case to be said that if Peggy is some sort of moral compass in this film, then she can see through Russell as a child, never gives him the time of day as an adult. But there's this presence about Jimmy and this way that she can see this good in this guy, and he's actually got it. She's
drawn to him straight
good
away,
heart, hasn't he? Like, so there's another level of that.
Cool. Do we think though he has a good heart? Like, I know she gets drawn to him because of his job. He's fighting for like union rights and stuff like that. But I think when it comes down to it, and we'll talk about Hoffa, I guess, in a sec, but they're both wanting almost similar things, Russell and Hoffa. It's just the way they kind of do it, and the facade and the persona. So you got Hoffa's very public, I need to be liked, union boss, and Russell is this still likable, but I'm the guy that gets you things, and it's very underhanded and it's more subdued. It's very, low key, and he, picks his words very carefully. Whereas Hoffa, he multiple times he's saying, I'm just like, I can go off sometimes.
He runs his mouth. Yeah.
And so I don't know if I know through the eyes of Peggy, it's quite clear, but I thought the performance by Joe Pesci was one of the highlights of the whole film. It was really good. I just like that whole, he was the guy that can get you things, and if he asked you to get something, he's like, you're the one that gets to get it. You don't ask someone else, because there's no way two roads are coming back to me.
Yeah.
And it was really nice.
Do what you're told by him.
Yeah.
Straight away.
I guess we move on to Jimmy.
Yeah.
We got to talk about Jimmy next. I had Jimmy as my second.
Yeah, and I think depending how you want to look at it,
yeah.
There's a huge case for that. Not that it matters. Like, we don't really have a discussion as to
No,
how we rate them.
I don't know, I just felt like the odd one out. I was like, oh. Yeah. So Jimmy, I thought the performance by Pacino was awesome. Like, we've said this with all these characters.
Mate,
like,
he was like a kettle getting to boiling point. Like, he just got better and better and better as the film went on.
he's loose. He just says what shouldn't be said, and I found that was the light part of the film. When everything else is so heavy and deep and dark, he was that sort of shining light that gave you a little bit of a smile on your face when you're watching a 3.5 hour film. And I thought that that they highlighted him as a union man really well, and this guy that does things for the working sort of person, and that's where Frank was sort of stuck in between, because they show early on that he's a working class man, and then obviously his loyalty is with Russ, but that and they did that in so many good ways, like especially with like the Kennedys, like how Russ was putting up signs for the Kennedys, and Hoffa's like, I hate him, and there's so many good lines about his hate for the Kennedys, and he was hilarious, but too emotional, and that to me that was his downfall as a character, that he was too emotional, but they did him
too
proud, and there's just things throughout that there's so much fine detail with this character that you don't actually, like, if you pay close attention to, you just respect how much they put into these characters, like especially with him, like they set up, he doesn't like drinking, he won't drink, and then like every scene that they're anywhere, they make that specific point of having like a soft drink bottle or a mineral water bottle,
don't they? Yeah.
And I just really really liked the way that they treated this character.
Dedication.
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny when you watch a film like this that's got so much chatter about it, and everyone's talking about De Niro, Pesci, Pacino, and you're watching this huge Scorsese film, and you kind of want to be like, I don't want to be that person who says like, this was awesome, and you know what? De Niro was awesome, and Pesci was awesome, Pacino was awesome. So you're watching it trying to be like, no, like everyone's just saying that because everyone else is saying it. They're all sheep. But then you watch it, you're like, God damn it, they're all awesome.
But he were.
You're just like, I don't want to be that guy, but you know what? They're awesome. So it's just a credit to them. I don't know how you can't watch this and not just completely like fall in love with what they're doing.
Anyone got anything else about Jimmy?
I think it's just more the point before. I guess I didn't watch it through the eyes of thinking this guy's the good guy the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, I think the
No
first
way.
time he's like, are you someone who paints houses
Yeah.
or something like that?
It's like his first lines in.
he wants to whack some guy. And
Yeah.
I
like,
do carpentry too.
I did.
yeah, that was clever.
Did his own carpentry work.
I
Do you
think
know what that's a reference to?
No.
That's the
It's
the
the
painting
cleanup.
Yeah, painting houses is the shooting, and carpentry
Ah,
is
it's
the
the
cleanup.
Because they clean up, yeah. So he kills them and cleans them up.
I haven't done enough
Oh,
high
mate,
for kills.
you should.
Pretty common language when you're yeah.
Come on, we knew this. Me and MJ knew what was going on.
All right,
yeah, the union boss. I think it comes from the right place, and he puts on the persona, but whether it talks about
he does come from the right place,
But-
because all he wants at the end is
his
to
union.
be back in charge of the thing that he created.
But I looked at that as more of a like it's his, and he has this entitlement to like something that doesn't need to be his anymore. It's a union. It's like in this place to benefit the workers, but he's so black and white about the donations to Nixon. We need these kind of like rulings. And no, it's my union. I'm not stepping aside,
So he's
even
a
if it
control
was for the
freak.
good. Yeah. So I mean, I got all the stuff that he is probably the
Lesser evil.
the lesser evil, and he's coming from a place where he wants to kind of do good, working.
He's probably got better intentions.
Yeah. And like the mob is almost a necessary evil, but he
Yeah.
doesn't want to be a part of that scene. He wants to kind of break away. He wants to make sure that he's protecting the trucks that run America, or as he says. But I think towards the end, you just kind of I could sympathize when they said that we need to get rid of him. Like, and I played it.
yeah.
He made his own bed.
He definitely did.
Do you want to talk some other characters?
There's another couple, but I'm very curious to see what other people are going to come up with next.
Okay, Peter, have you got any other characters?
No,
Simo?
I'm good.
I had one.
Yeah, who?
I had Tony Pro.
Tony Pro.
Tony Pro.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to talk about Tony Pro.
What have you got about Tony Pro?
I have his name down because I knew you guys were going to talk about it. But I thought the performance by Stephen Graham was quite good.
He was good.
A lot of my favorite kind of scenes involve Tony Pro. Some of the things, and I guess the role that he played as kind of the competitor, kind of one in New Jersey to his place in the union and where he's linked to the mobs. I just thought a lot of the stuff for him playing golf, and I don't know if you had like big thoughts, but I just remember after the movie thinking, this is out of the main three who have got huge names. Once you list out the chess, Pesci, De Niro, and Pacino, who else is left? And obviously those people grab scenes quite strongly, and so they should, and so they do. But Tony Pro was another guy I thought was quite pivotal to a lot of the stuff.
I think you bang on, and I think he functions really well as a villain in this case, because it's his like pesky little arrogance, and you can just. I feel like if this guy was on the opposite team to me, I would probably react the exact same way Pacino does in this film, Hoffa does in this film, because he just drives you crazy because he feels like he's got this unentitled arrogance about him and that's something that bothers me as a trait. But that's what basically led to Hoffa's demise. And simple as that, this one character that he just couldn't get over.
He was the main catalyst to that downfall, and I really enjoyed that they used his character as an integral part in jail there's a racial slur, and I really liked that they didn't just let that stand in jail, and that they used that as that centerpiece to be the lead as to why his downfall, and like they follow up on that, and they didn't let Jimmy get away with saying that, and through other characters like Fat Tony and those characters, like we don't agree with what he said, but you can't treat him like that. And I thought that was an important catalyst.
It just begs the question though, that how late is too late?
So Fat Tony, is that like Fat Tony from The Simpsons?
How could it not be some
Surely
some
it has
kind
to
of
be.
reference?
Yeah,
Like
it has to-
It can't just be a coincidence.
Tony, everyone's Tony.
Yeah.
Tony this, Tony
There's
that.
so many Tonys.
I had Peggy down as well.
Same. That was the last one.
I really needed to talk about Peggy because, like, we've probably already mentioned this, but she was like this switched on character that she knew, like, through her eyes, you could see that she knew what her dad was doing throughout this film. And, she's very rude to Russ, and we've sort of spoken about how she probably saw him as bad compared to Jimmy, who...
She's probably also saw Russ as the man who made her dad what he is as well.
And there was such emphasis on this poor relationship throughout the film that it was nice that it was underlying throughout to sort of, I guess she was the representative of that family and how he'd stuffed up with the family.
I agree. She was those judging eyes. And I think as an audience member, and maybe it's me not being as smart as I could have been, it took me a while to really pick up on the fact that they had her every single time after he'd killed someone or done something wrong. They had her walking in on him, reading the newspaper or listening to the radio, or watching
Standing
the
in the
news,
doorway.
understanding his reaction to
Yeah.
listening to it and
Yeah.
going, this is what he did. And
Yeah.
then obviously culminated when the news came through of Hoffa's disappearance, and then she calls him out. And the first time
Yeah.
she actually calls him out because she cares about Hoffa. And that's when she's like, and that line of dialogue is like, and that's the last time Peggy ever spoke to me.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Just the way they set that up so well throughout the whole film.
So this is a Scorsese film. We've mentioned that already. I've got a question for you guys. So IMDb, often when you log on or you search someone, that has like their top 4 most recognized things. Can you work out what you reckon IMDb says are Scorsese's most 4 recognized films?
Hang on. Irishman's not there, right?
And Irishman is not
good,
there.
Good to know.
All right. So you want 4?
Yeah, and if you can give me the year, I'll give you bonus points.
Goodfellas.
It is.
Goodfellas is one, 1990, bang.
Raging Bull,
No, Raging Bull is not one.
Taxi Driver,
Taxi Driver is 1976, correct?
Wolf of Wall Street,
Wolf of Wall Street, not there. So we've got 2. We've got Taxi Driver, Goodfellas.
Departed.
Departed's not there, no. And that's his Oscar winner. Or one of his Oscar winners.
The Aviator.
I wouldn't have got these other 2, no.
Don't say that. I wouldn't have got them.
Is it one of the early ones?
Yeah, so...
Hugo.
No, here you go. So one's from the 70s, Mean Streets. I've got that
That's a
down.
good
As
movie.
his second, and then the third one was The Age of Innocence from the 90s.
Okay.
So I just thought I'd bring that up because that was...
by
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you are surprised, like with those IMDb
Yeah.
things, though. But it's all relative, right? Like, it's
Correct.
whatever.
I was going to say Shutter Island. That was a good movie.
that is, yeah.
I had issues with
I
it.
like Shutter Island. I really like it. I don't think that got
No, I think
that wasn't that well received, but I really liked it.
got a bit of a cult
I
following.
liked it more when I watched it, and I wasn't so angry with the
Ending?
obvious twist. I remember watching it in the cinema and being like, "Please have another twist! Like, please, you just spelled out the most obvious twist." And then I wanted another one, and they didn't give it to me. But I got over it.
So we've highlighted a lot of the performances. Are there any that didn't really work for you, or other ones that worked for you? I've got one.
Yeah,
go.
go.
Well, Peggy. I didn't really rate Anna Paquin in this. I struggled with her performance.
You know what would have been better if it was someone that wasn't recognised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I saw Anna Paquin, I'm like, oh, who's
that.
Anna Paquin playing in this film?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh,
I
Peggy.
feel like for Anna Paquin, she should have had more lines.
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah.
Same with Jesse Plemons.
Plemons as Chucky.
Like they're
That was fine, though.
pretty big, pretty big names.
Yeah.
They just didn't have a lot
So I
of
thought Ray
lines to
Romano
work
was
with.
great.
Ray Romano was awesome.
But
Yeah.
Anna Paquin, I just struggled with.
I agree.
With her as a miscast. That's
She's
all I can
she's
say.
the
'Cause
one
she's a great
person
actress.
who
but-
I thought,
Yeah.
this is Anna Paquin. I didn't think this is a character.
Yeah.
And it's such a pivotal role. Like Peggy's so important in the story. And when the kid that played that, like Peggy when she was younger, was fine. And then once it became the adult Peggy, I was a bit.
I agree.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
was-
really good pickup.
Is that more the kind of writing the script, giving her room to breathe and like perform in the scenes? Because I think there wasn't really within what was kind of cut and edit and put in, and I thought the character, they made a point of saying a lot without saying anything.
Yeah.
And they were very poignant to say, this is her 2 lines in the movie.
Yeah.
Did you want more from her? Like,
I could have switched her with the other sister who made that sort of heartfelt sob at the end, and then put someone else in that role because she could have nailed that one scene.
I needed Anna Paquin to be less recognized. I think I needed
Yeah.
that character to be less recognizable, so I wasn't. Because when I saw her, I was like, that's right, Anna Paquin's in this film. And I was honestly thinking, I wonder who she plays. Like, it didn't click that she was Peggy. And when I found out it was Peggy, I was like, oh, that's jarring.
Yeah.
And that's all it was. It's not her fault or her
No,
performance.
no.
I think you're right. It's miscast because she's so recognizable.
I
Cool.
agree with that.
All right, are we good to look at some scenes?
Let's do it.
yeah, man.
Okay. Anyone want to volunteer to start, or should I pick?
You know what? You never start.
Why don't you start,
You
Jesse?
never start, Jesse.
Okay,
And
I'll
this is
start.
our big film. It's
I don't
our big
want
bonus
to.
episode.
Don't want to steal people's thunder, but there's going to be. I'm guessing we're going to
Just go for it, mate. Just go
So
for
if
it.
there's one that I say that you agree with, chime in.
Yeah,
Let me
we
know
will,
how
we
you're
will.
feeling.
Are you going to go chronologically?
I am. I go
Helps.
chronologically.
Helps.
Yeah, it makes it a lot
Yeah.
easier. There's a bit. I'll say that straight up, and then I'm talking about the opening and the closing scene.
And that's it. I just like the opening and the closing.
So the tracking shot at the start in this nursing home or elderly care place that just goes through the corridors, shows you what's going on in the environment that Frank's now living in, and they close with that same sort of shot out of his room. I thought that was awesome, and I really enjoyed other examples of that through the film. And the one that comes to my mind most vividly is the murder at the barbershop. So the camera just tracks into the barbershop, shows you what's going on in the barbershop, comes back outside into this like shopping strip, and then you see the two guys come up the stairs, go back towards the barbershop, and the camera just stops on those flowers. I was just like, this is amazing camera work. It was just so good.
Yeah, you're right.
So good.
I like that you point that finishing the same way you started. It's almost like you've wandered in and now you're wandering out.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, I really like that. I thought when Russ and Frank first met and they talk about bocce, like when he's fixing the car, he's like, oh, you're Italian, blah, blah, bocce. And then when you see them later on in prison together and they're playing a game of bocce together when they're older, there's just these connections throughout that are really well thought out.
Can I just say, when Russ first helps Frank with the car and he keeps referring to him as kid, that really threw me because I'm like, I know you've got this anti-aging thing, but he still looks like he's 45. Like let's not pretend.
Yeah.
I'm like, am I supposed to think he's 18?
No, he definitely still is old.
Just the language of kid threw me a little bit.
I thought when Frank comes home and the daughter's boss sort of like pushed her at work, and then he's straight away, it just shows you the irrationality of his character that he's out of control. He's just straight away, he's like, I need to defend whoever I respect, I'm defending them, and he just goes to that shop and
just without thinking about the
stomps on
consequences
the guy's
of what's going to happen.
The thing is, you can tell that's a turning point for Peggy as well, because she was more than happy to be like, oh yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, this is it. And then like the rest of it, she barely says boo. So that was clearly like better not
say anything to Dad anymore.
Dad,
I like the scene where we spoke about this before, where Frank goes to the laundry place and for a little bit of cash on the side goes and cleans out this shop, and then Angelo, when he comes back and he has to face the consequences to this Angelo boss guy about, I had part ownership in that, and it just highlighted to me how much Russ believed in him and put his neck out for him and stood up for him, and I just really enjoyed that scene.
Yeah, it's literal. This guy is the reason that you're still around.
The taxi scene where they're just getting rid of all these taxis. That was cool.
That was good.
That was just a cool scene.
That was really good.
Because I was thinking the whole time, like, that would have cost so much to get all these taxis made up, looking at the time frame, and I was like, and he's destroyed them all anyway.
Yeah, that was so good.
The scene where they're sitting in this ice cream shop and JFK's death's on the TV. Just the way they dealt with that, even though that they may have been critical of the Kennedys throughout and who liked them and who didn't like them, just to show that respect and understand that that was such a big important moment to a lot of Americans, and I thought they dealt with that really well.
Very good point. It's interesting to think that if that happened nowadays, you'd be reading rumors on Twitter and you'd see this and that, and in that case, it was literally like, oh, we think the president's in trouble. Actually, the president's dead. Yeah. Bang.
Yeah. I thought that Hunt guy that he had to go see him, the big ears. I thought that was funny, and then the follow up later on with the Watergate scandal. I thought that was funny.
Are you looking at my ears?
I've had them fixed.
And then hover at the end. It's like his ears aren't that big.
There's a scene where Frank organizes, like, he's going to do the hit on Joe, the crazy Joe guy, and he just sets all these guns out on the bed and talks you through that whole motion of planning it out. Where he's going to go, where he's going to get dropped off, he's going to go to the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. And then once he's gone through that, it takes like 2 seconds. He literally walks in, does exactly what he says, shoots him, walks out, gets in the car, and it's done,
Wounds a security guard.
I love that, especially the choosing the gun and explaining which guns, taking out which guns, which don't fit his explanation. I love that scene.
The build-up was awesome too, and then just have it so quickly, it was really cleverly done.
Bang,
I looked up the dialogue for that because I was so interested, and just like to go through it. There's a big like block of dialogue, and you go to the bathroom because you may need to go to the bathroom, but you need to have a C, and you got to do it in front of his daughter because that's half the point. It's just that was brilliant.
Yeah, it was such a good
It all
scene.
seemed like like everything he says is like obviously this is what you do. Obviously you use this gun. Obviously, like, it was brilliant.
It was so good.
I thought the scenes with Jimmy being angry at Tony. And like there's scenes where he's like using physical humor to because he calls him a cocksucker the whole bloody movie, and like he's using his physical comedy. I just thought those scenes were funny. The big sort of presentation where he gets this award, and he's on stage, and Jimmy's giving him the award. The two parts of that were really good. The dialogue between Jimmy and Russ when they're having that discussion was awesome, on key,
absolutely
perfect. And then the follow-on, like, and laughs in that as well, even though it was like really important. Like he's like, "Who comes to a meeting in shorts?" Like it had this humor in it.
Was
even
that
though
the
it was
only time that they have a scene together, Russ and Jimmy?
possibly
Because that was just so good to see them
Such-
bouncing off
yeah.
each other. And I think it was.
It was.
I can't think of any other scene where they were actually in the same, just them two. And I agree, that was one of my
I
favourite
like
scenes
they had the guts to just follow that straight away with another dialogue heavy scene between Frank and Jimmy,
Yeah.
just to follow up on that conversation. Like they're like, look, we don't care that. It was just great to see that back to back.
You're right.
And I spoke about this before. The attention to detail throughout. When Russ sends Frank off to kill Jimmy, just this one little thing that stuck with me was he took his sunglasses off as he was getting out of the car, because it's like, we're going from somewhere that's warm, you're going somewhere that's cold. Just that detail to me was just like they spent so much effort on this film. And that scene, we mentioned this before too, where Frank has to call Jimmy's wife and he just lies to her on the phone about, oh, do you know where he is? Is he okay?
Yeah.
And MJ said this before, that acknowledgement of him saying, this is when I lost Peggy.
Yeah.
That was just an impactful scene.
That's when you just say, this guy is actually a scumbag.
Yeah.
That's when you really figure it out, Frank. He's like, no.
Well, I left that scene almost thinking like, because it was like, have you called the wife yet?
Yeah.
Whether, obviously he's quite emotional. Is he actually emotional?
I think he is.
Or
Yeah.
He's emotional,
so,
and that's
yeah.
what pisses me off the most, is that this guy meant a lot to him, and he still did it.
Still did it, yeah.
Because I thought that was very powerful, the
Yeah,
performance and him kind of being so emotional on the phone. And
For sure.
it was like one of the few kind of insights to him,
Yeah.
revealing some of his feelings. But then even so, I left it saying, well, is that an act? But, is he playing on the phone? And
The scene when Russell and Frank are having breakfast, and Russell just really casually is like, "Oh, we're not gonna do that drive today. You're gonna do this," and that was the thing for me where I'm like, "This is awesome." Now Frank has to make a decision, because the way he just didn't say anything, and you could see him mulling over like, "I am going to kill one of my best friends," and that magnitude, and it was all over his face, and I loved it. And then to the point where you talk about the sunglasses, takes his sunglasses off. From the minute he takes his sunglasses off, and probably talking like a 15-minute sequence till he comes back, maybe even longer, puts his sunglasses back on, no music. From that period where he takes his
was really good.
sunglasses, not one lick of music. And that's where Frank's at. Like, and I was still kind of like, maybe he won't do it. And that was heavy. It was great though. It was just everything about it was so great. Sorry, I'm cutting.
No, that's great. And this is my last one anyway, but throughout the film, they used lots of television segments to explain what's going on in the world as what's happening. And I really appreciated that, even though he's old in the nursing home, he's sitting there watching like what was happening in Kosovo on the TV screen. I was like, even though that has no context whatsoever to the previous things in his life, it still shows you that he's still keeping up to date with what's going on, and they're still making that connection throughout the film. And I liked that.
Nice one.
Good.
MJ.
I'll try and go. I'll leave out the ones that you've already mentioned, but there's still a few. I think I really like the scene where he killed Whispers with that walk-by shooting, and then it went straight to his family reading the paper, and then the dialogue of, for me, everything changed after Whispers.
Yep.
You really realise the poignancy of that moment. There was a really good Pacino spray when he's in that office telling everyone that how shit they are and how they're all going to get fired. Because firstly, I love a good Pacino speech after any given Sunday. But then I love the humour, like how Frank walked out and he's just like, no, it didn't apply to you. I didn't see you there. Oh, we're standing right there. No, I didn't see you there. It didn't apply to you. I thought that was great. The courtroom scene where the guy tries to shoot at Hoffa and Chucky belted him, it came at a time where the movie was slowing down for me a little bit, and it went from 0 to 10 real quick. You see this guy out of nowhere just come out with a gun. And then that humour again with, always charge a guy with a gun. Always charge a guy with a gun. Run away with a knife, charge a guy with a gun. And he's like, "There's my boy Chucky," and he's just like celebrating. And just straight away, it's almost like Scorsese, because that scene didn't actually have much impact on the rest of the film. If anything, it was just that Jimmy's a bit of a wanted man, but it's like he's like, we need to put something in here. It's getting a bit dry, and I noticed that. So that scene where he killed Joey really had my heart pumping. Like that setup, the description of how to approach the moment, like you said. That was what I watched on the end. That was the last thing I watched before Friday night, before I stopped. So it was basically halfway through the film. And it
good
was
one to
just
end on.
like, yeah, well, it was
one to end
set up for the whole 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much my heart was pumping until I was like, wow, that was just electric. The power play we spoke about in the moment with Jimmy and Tony in jail. Sorry, not in jail, but after their jail, apologising for being late and apologise for saying you people. They both just tried to have that power. And then Frank, that man in between, why don't we say 12 and a half minutes?
Yeah.
He's always just like saying the right thing.
And he even
doing the
called
right
Jimmy
line.
out and he said, I think you're being a bit unreasonable.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. That's why I felt with the kind of the Hoffa thing, like, I thought he was being unreasonable too.
Yeah.
He was saying,
Yeah.
just apologise. You made a racist remark.
Yeah.
All I need you to do is
Yeah.
apologise, and
Yeah.
then you get my backing, and then we're all good.
I'll apologise.
And he's
Yeah.
refused.
But,
You
yeah,
apologise
just
for being
refuses.
late. But you know that scene, Stephen Graham, who plays Tony Pro, was so intimidated because De Niro didn't have a line in the scene. So then he just threw to him and ad-libbed to him and said, what do you think, Frank? And then like De Niro off the top of his head just like, 12 and a half minutes. It's like, heck, it's that.
And one of I think the best lines for the movie where I was happy, where they're talking about what you wear to meetings.
Yeah.
And he's like, for a meeting, anywhere, Florida, Timbuktu, I dress in a suit.
Yeah.
For a meeting, and you're late.
Yeah, I mentioned before the scene in the kitchen where Russell tells Frank that they're going up to not going in the morning. And then the final one that was just the fish story. And topped off topped off by when he's asking all the questions and he goes, because I want to be able to explain this if somebody asks me. that was just great. Really
So
good
good,
humour.
yeah.
Really well done.
Peter, what do you got?
What of mine have been said. I really liked the whole the start with the steak delivery, seeing what he did and how he starts kind of to get involved with the mob and to undercut the other businesses, and when he puts the thing on the truck and
Does the dodgy.
does the dodgy, takes the signs off the other meat as they're going around. Just the whole thing of him starting to get the undercutting. The choosing the gun on the bed and the whole kill. Like I said, the restaurant where they're fighting about how late he is, and you'd wait 10 minutes. No, I think you wait 15 minutes. Wait 10. That whole thing was great. I loved any time that Frank killed someone. Basically, just the whole. I guess I felt like it wasn't like a lot of other movies with kind of hits where he just kind of walks past and just kind of throws the gun at the face and then keeps on walking. I thought they were all really good. I really like the scene of him killing Hoffa, just going into the house, going, "Oh no, get out!" It's a setup or something, and he kills him. That was fantastic. Just in general, I really just like the whole concept of painting houses as being the hitman. The line, "I heard you paint houses." Just find that really cool. Just that whole code, or everything. And there was just one other line that Frank Sheeran says is, "3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead." Just really cool.
That's good, yeah.
Loved it. Yeah,
Good.
good.
Nice.
Simo?
I've only got
We didn't leave much.
small ones. So I've crossed off most of the ones,
movie.
but very small when we first meet Bill Buffalino, or Ray Romano's character. And
Ray Romano was great, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
thought it
was,
was
yeah.
fantastic. And just some of that dialogue when he was like, going to be his lawyer, his defendant. We ask him, they're just going to want names from you or accomplices. That's all. Give them a couple of names. You go home, you keep your job. What do you think about that? And it kind of like played into his loyalty. He's like, no, I'm fine. He's like, whether you did it or not makes no difference to me. But,
Yeah. Just trying to get it out of him. Yeah, did you do it?
You know, I did it. Oh, yeah.
And the other small one that I thought was actually one of the funniest moments for me was when Tony Pro put the hit out on his competitor where they put him through the shredder, and there's a bit where they call him like something that he likes jazz, that he was like a jazz fan, and then he switched the radio to jazz, and that's just when the guy starts strangling him, and then the driver just like switched it back to what he was listening to. I thought that was quite clever how they did
It's
that.
great attention to detail. It's like these little things that are just well thought out.
Nice way to go,
And
though. At least you're listening to favourite music when you die.
Yeah, and I think just talking about the jazz, I thought the soundtrack in this movie was just, for me, I like really, really liked it. I'm not sure if I've got kind of a number for the 50s, 60s jazz by playing Fallout. I don't know if you know that game where you're in the wasteland. It's the only radio station available. But they had Muddy Waters, Fats Domino, Jerry Val. They're all like, big time, like, blues kind of jazz people.
right.
And,
I have that Fallout on LP.
yeah? Well, you speak in my language, man. Because it's and I think...
I don't have an LP
I
player.
don't know what you're talking
But I've
about.
got
Or
it.
you can bring it over.
Yeah.
Like a record.
Oh, okay.
But
What's Fallout?
Fallout's a
Video game.
PlayStation game.
Ah, okay, sorry.
But I think the way they used the music and the timing and everything, the backdrop, it made the world come to life
Yeah,
a little bit more. And
It's one of his big things, Scorsese. Always movies got great soundtracks. He does music so well in pretty much all his movies.
He's got a good score, says he.
oh,
And then you could like say,
Yeah, where's-
says he.
Oh, man, we must be
Wow.
traveling in time. Okay, what didn't we like about it, MJ? What wasn't?
Just one
Yeah.
scene I didn't like, and I've actually seen a bit of traction to this on Twitter as well. That's copying a fair bit. When Frank beat up that grocer, he was literally moving like an 80-year-old when he was supposed to be 40, and it was so obvious. And I was like, ugh, this is terrible.
They made a few like a couple of things I read too. The scenes where Jimmy's with his family watching TV with the Kennedys a lot. They had to do those scenes so many times because how old is he? Struggled to get up off the seat in a way that didn't look like an old man. Yeah.
So,
Similar
but that
sort of
one,
thing,
that one was almost like you probably should have got that right. Like it's so obvious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was bad.
Heater.
Oh, which would be the only same one. Just when he's on the when he's throwing the punches, it is so obvious the punches just don't connect.
Yeah.
Like it's not it. Yeah. It doesn't look anywhere close to connecting. Even the kicking as well. But the punches was just like, come on, you can do it a lot better than that. It's so obvious they are not connecting at all.
Should have got James Caan from The Godfather to redo that scene.
Yeah.
Simo.
I've got one or two, and maybe I missed a whole chunk here, and I'd like to get your thoughts. But I want to talk about the fish scene with the car. So going into it, I was like, okay, so why is his foster son there? Why is it wet? They were saying you need De Niro's character Frank. You know, you sit in the front. You sit in the front because I thought, okay, something's wet. He knows that something's maybe changed or something's different. I thought the dialogue was very funny, but I thought it was funny because the guy was asking questions about what fish it is and stuff like that because he'd be smart enough to think that maybe it's a stupid story, so I want to poke holes in it. And then when they finally picked up Hoffa, and then it's almost like they said things about the fish and he was on board. I was like, okay, so this is going somewhere. There's like a code or something about the fish, about it's wet. And then was then something I missed, or I thought there was going to be a payoff there or something, and then
To me, I think it was like the meaningless dialogue that ends up being the final conversation of Jimmy's life. Maybe just this is how you ended it.
I had that in my questions too. I wanted to know what was the significance of the fish thing because him wanting to sit in the back seat, to me, I was thinking as I was watching it that he wants to get this over and done with as quick as possible. So he was planning in his head, maybe I'll just drive by and shoot him instead of going through the whole plan of bringing him back to the house because I'm not going to be able to get him in the car and give away that I'm going to kill him because he's such a good friend and I'm not going to be able to sit in the back and sit with him in the car and not give away what I'm going to do. And that, but the fish thing still doesn't. I don't have an answer to it.
I saw the fish as comic relief, and I saw it as like this mundane piece of dialogue that. In what is Jimmy Hoffa, you know, the great Jimmy Hoffa's last moments of life, this is what he was talking about. I also don't understand the relevance of Chucky being there. I didn't understand that. I was really thrown when that happened.
Yeah, and he got a time in jail for being
Yeah.
Yeah.
because didn't they say like when he was narrating Frank, he's saying, you know, I felt the most bad about Chucky,
Yeah.
but I still didn't 100% get. Did he know what was happening? Like,
I don't think he did.
No,
It's
no,
almost
no.
like he was a pawn to make
Get him in the
to
car.
make Jimmy feel more comfortable
Yeah.
to come in the car.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming the fact it's based on a true story. That's probably
That's,
just what happened.
that's what would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
they
it just,
didn't
it
in
seemed
the-
weird that he was in there
In the
though.
narration, didn't they say they couldn't actually get him on being in that car, but they got him for some other crap
Yeah.
charges?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
So you got 7 months or something. And
Yeah.
What else?
did you want to save the end for later? Because I know there's just
The end.
there's moments in terms of leaving the door open,
Ah.
the whole process.
You put in that in your bad scenes.
Not in the bad scenes. I just got
We're in
more
bad scenes.
things or questions to ask, and there was a couple of moments where I felt like either let down or lost or anticlimactic, and I wanted to kind of talk about the end.
I'm happy to do it now.
Do it.
Well, yeah, we're basically at yeah.
Yeah, go
There
for
was
it.
there was stuff about, you know, I'm going to church,
Yep.
and then we didn't see him again. He died. We
Ross.
had the narration. Yeah, Ross. Sorry. My daughter won't see me. You know, there was kind of the end. There was this epic. We've had 3.5 hours, and then you've had the story with the priest. And can you just leave the door open? And then we've got credits. And I felt just this mammoth kind of story. I felt really like powerful and emotional for where he's come, but I didn't kind of feel, I was like, okay, so does he have regret? Does he have sorrow? Is he kind of happy? And then I just thought something was going to happen, and then can you just leave the door open? And then we had credits, and then we're talking about like this epic, like I just felt a little bit empty.
So to me, I don't think there's a right or wrong with this at all. I think there's so many ways to look at this, and however you want to look at it is the way you look at it.
I think you can interpret this so many ways.
For me, the way I interpreted it was, it was like an homage to Jimmy.
Yeah, I got that.
Like an I'm sorry, I haven't forgotten you, because when he first meets Jimmy
in the hotel,
Jimmy leaves the door open when they go to bed.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I saw it as, and you know,
yeah,
it was a sign of trust from Jimmy in the first place to leave the door open with Frank in his whatever you want to call it, his flat. And I saw it as like this is my I'm sorry, Jimmy, or I.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how I saw it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
To me, and that felt like a really fitting ending.
But, and you can also like look at it as like, you know, he's got that door open because he still wants to be a part of what's going on. He's still got that door open to
once his daughter's
once his daughter come back
just
through,
in case
basically,
they pop in before he dies.
Yeah.
Or he wants if they walk past and don't come in, he wants to be able to get up and go to see that.
His story's not finished.
Yeah.
It wasn't a forgettable scene, but I thought it was important to kind of get your guys' kind of thoughts and
I
views
agree.
and
I had it in my questions.
of things to kind of tie together and what was representing, because I kind of went to the end as like big breath out, and then immediately I'm like, okay.
It's because Jesse forced you to watch it in the night.
I'm like, sorry, what do I think about this film? And there was just so many kind of emotions, but usually when I walk out, I'm like, oh my god, that was amazing. And with this, I was just like, okay, I need to think about some of these things, and I just didn't have an immediate emotional reaction.
Yeah. That's cool.
But
I like thinking about films when they finish that.
It's probably our segue into what did we think about this film? What were some ideas that it was exploring, not explaining, because there's a fair bit in this.
What are your big themes, Jesse?
There's parts about this about the waste of life. And I felt like they did this in a really good way with whenever you were introduced to a character, they froze the screen on when they died.
Great, wasn't it?
And just...
And showed you how and why
how they
and
died.
the text on the screen. That
That
was really good.
It was just like saying, hey, we've got all these characters that we're going to make, but they're dead. They die. And it wasn't like that they like kept the dialogue going. It was like, let's freeze frame this and show you that they're dead. Life is fragile. And they sort of follow this through with Frank at the end too, because you don't get a freeze frame on Frank's death, but you see him go to the cemetery and pick out...
He literally picks out his coffin.
He makes a big deal about, I don't want to be in the ground because that's too final.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to be in this crypt in this wall that's not as final. So I thought that was a thing that went throughout the film.
It kind of ties into the theme of power, because obviously power is a huge theme in this film, but what is power? What does it do for you? And how long do you actually get it for? Because no one really has this everlasting power, or no one has this ability to last forever.
They showed that through they showed that through the mob. So the mob's got power, and then they tried to show it through Jimmy, through the Union having power too. They also symbolized it through the watch and the ring, constantly throughout this power. Like whenever he checked his watch or his ring, that was when he felt in control, because he's like, this is what I'm at. This is the power that I've got in this situation. I thought that was good. Masculinity.
Yeah,
there's a big thing with this too. Apart from Peggy, the female characters in this were literally bystanders or taking smokers.
Or chain smoking.
That was literally the only times that they were in this film. So,
It's an interesting point when you've got a cast of completely flawed characters and such little female involvement in their lives. What are they missing?
Yeah. This idea of brotherhood with it. What about sorrow? Like... They try to pump this out of Frank towards the end too, and the only comment that he makes in the film, and I know in life, the guy who wrote the book said like this story is because he's got the story, but in the film, the only comment that they make is Frank to the priest says something along the lines of that phone call. The priest's like, "What do you mean about that phone call?" So there's this one moment where after 3 hours and 20 minutes, you actually get this one inkling of, I stuffed up, and then he's like, "Nah, that's it, I'm done, I'm closed off." So. Yeah.
The phone call to his wife.
Yeah,
Jesse's wife.
He made that. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah, it's all about that regret of what he did to Jimmy.
And in the same way too, he's like he's remorseless. He does he's a sociopath.
He's 100% a sociopath.
Yeah.
There's an idea of family and what is family and what does it all matter when it's all said and done. I tend to believe that he sincerely got wrapped into this to earn money for his family. When he realised that there was a little paycheck involved with what he could do, he was like, okay.
Yeah, and he made that comment about, more kids, I need more money.
Yeah, exactly right. And at what point did that take over and push him away from his family? And was it ever possible to juggle both? And in that sense, did Jimmy do that successfully? With Jimmy obviously had family, and his kids, and got on well with them, and sort of had that balance in his life that Frank didn't. Obviously, Jimmy wasn't a hitman either, so it's a bit different there. But a lot of questions about, and as you said before, his family was the mob in the end.
Yeah.
He actively chose them, and I think a lot of that, Jesse, is to your point about his history in the war and what his brain's trained to do and how that works. So, really complicated.
Last thing, do you guys have anything else about them?
Oh no, I mean, we spoke about it before. Was just the loyalty and the who you're loyal to, the family or the mob, and what you're willing to do for that loyalty.
Yeah. My other thing was just the politics. I thought was interesting, and it ties in with the power. But obviously the Kennedys were a big part of the story for an hour or so in the movie, and they kind of, there's been criticism on the film, I know, inferring that the mobsters kind of put Kennedy into power almost.
And took him out.
They said, we killed a president.
Yeah, but I just thought a lot of the kind of history behind what happened during that era, and the Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba, and the kind of what happened in New Havana when the mobsters kind of controlled a lot of Cuba when they were a democracy going into the overthrow by Fidel Castro into the socialist. And they kind of reclaimed all these hotels.
American history experts,
Yeah, well, I mean, it was because I was lucky enough to be there earlier this year, and you kind of get the tour of all the hotels and these buildings that are in New Havana that were, it's very rich, beautiful kind of space that when the I guess the mobsters in American kind of like had access, and they were able to do whatever they want because they had like the Batista dictatorship, and then Fidel Castro came in social, and they just kind of reclaimed all the buildings for the government. And I thought a lot of that history, obviously Frank drove that truck that had all of the weapons that was then given to the expat Cubans that the Americans dropped off for the invasion. And I just thought a lot of that kind of context and weaving that through into the story. And that was such a big part of Kennedy's president kind of span before he got assassinated, and that the mobsters had such a kind of investment in what was going on with that, and how it kind of played into Frank's story. I just thought it was good.
If you're interested in a good film called 13 Days, which looks at how Kennedy has dealt with that situation of that whole Cuban Missile Crisis. Good film, very good film.
Kevin Costner?
Yeah, very good film. All right, what do we take away from this film? Oh, I wanted to finish on.
Yeah, I was going to say
it is what it is. That's all I want to say. All right. What do we take?
It is what it is.
All right. What do we take away from this film, MJ?
I think one of the best things about this film is the chatter around it. Like, this film's been out for a week. Over the weekend, I had a text message group from guys I work with that was purely organic. Someone said, "Who's watched The Irishman?" And 3 people were like, "Yeah, watching it now. I've watched it." Chatter around the office when I went into work on Monday. My grandma messaged me on Friday morning. She'd already seen it, and she gave me her feedback on it. She's a big movie buff. And then even for us rushing to do this podcast, like, I love a big cinema experience, a big movie experience and a big movie moment. And this is almost the best thing I'm taking out of this film, is that with what people are going to call the demise of theatres, or the fact that we're not going to be watching movies on the big screen as much as we were back in the day, and they're only going to be reserved for your big Marvel hits or your big, really generic movies, we can still have these big movie moments, and I think that's really exciting. Yeah, that's my key takeaway.
Peter?
No, great. It was great to be able to watch this at home, just in the comfort of home, just when I wanted to. And have the option, to
go to the toilet.
Exactly. It's 3.5 hours, and you guys know I can't last that long. Like, a few toilet breaks, get up and grab a drink, grab
I'm struggling
food.
right now on the pod.
It was
desperate.
It was just really good, just to be able to watch it just in that comfort on my own terms. Just watch this. This awesome film, just in how I wanted to.
Good, Simo.
Yeah, I think we kind of spoke about The Irishman and the weight of how big it is and being on Netflix, and it is like a new experience for us and for people everywhere to be able to watch this movie and then kind of track it with like this Oscar buzz and be able to share it with a lot of your friends and have the discussion. So that was kind of the biggest thing after the movie was being a part of the discussion and being able to watch such an epic, and I mean, there's the talk, is this the last time we get these people together, and Scorsese
for sure.
in this kind of medium, and it was just, that's kind of the main takeaways I took.
Good. Yeah, I'm similar to MJ. Like my dad, weeks prior, he was literally like trying to work out how he was going to use Netflix to watch this film, because he just wanted to see something. It was like, can you use your sisters? How do I watch it? But yeah, the only, like we've all said, this would be great on the big screen.
Yep.
Yeah.
The only off-putting thing for me was De Niro's eyes at certain times, and I'm taking that away because that was the only thing that stood out to me. Like his eyes, the color of his eyes at certain times in this film were off-putting to me.
Yeah, okay.
And that's the only sort of thing that I can sort of say that made me feel a little bit off-put.
Yeah. Okay.
So with the takeaways then, obviously the movie's not linear. We're jumping quite a few all over the place.
Yep.
Did you find that jarring in any way? Was there any points where, I think there was one scene I'm like, is he 50? Is he 30? I was a little bit confused.
bit of that, you're right. There was a little bit of that. I think
At the start, especially when they did a few jumps, I was a bit confused when they jumped back, and I'm like, ooh, which age are they now? At what point in the story am I? But I think there was only maybe one.
I think it was aided by the fact that the story itself was so clear.
Hmm.
Because I think the story was more clear than sometimes the way they looked. Because it could have been obvious, right? Okay, this is 40-year-old, this is 60-year-old, and that could have been more obvious. But because I did have issues sometimes trying to figure out how old they were supposed to be. But I think if you just follow the way the story's progressing, you know where you're at any point in time. But it's I sort of did notice that.
The only bit I got confused was when they did kill Crazy Joe, the hit, and I thought it was telling a time potentially where he was like on the hit, but it was actually when they were driving up to the wedding. Yeah, because he was older.
Well, I think they did a good job in differentiating between the two, where whenever they flashed back to going to the wedding, you could see the four of them in the car. So that was your baseline, was that you saw the four in the car.
Yeah.
And whether they stopped to smoke, whether they stopped to pick up money, that was your baseline, was that you could work out when the four are in the car, that's the
Now,
way
at
to
the
the wedding.
time.
That's on the way to the wedding, whereas
Yeah.
everything else was running from the start towards that.
And almost leaving Peggy at the house before hits and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
The other exciting thing to take away about this is the fact that it does have genuine Oscar buzz. And it does, and I'm trying to rack my brain about what the answer is to this. And I know you and I, Jesse, are quite big fans of the Oscars, and generally we like to watch them and keep track of them. There's a very real chance that Joe Pesci and Al Pacino are both nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah.
And if we want to ignore every other person who's in that category just for the sake of this, who wins?
Pesci.
I go Pesci.
I don't have an answer yet. If you had asked me 2 hours into the film, I would have said Pesci.
Yeah.
But Pacino just
Yeah.
got better and better and better. It's hard, and I can't wait to see how it ends up, because I reckon they'll both get nominated. I really do.
All right,
And
IMDb.
they'll probably be against Brad Pitt too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will be.
IMDb time. Did anyone jump on at any stage to see or look someone up on IMDb?
Yes, I did.
Yes, who?
The character was Skinny Razor, played by Bobby Cannavale, who is
Carnivale.
in Fundamentals of Caring. In Fundamentals of Caring that we've done on this podcast as the girl, what's her name, Selena Gomez's father, who follows them up the.
I recommended a co-worker to watch Fundamentals of Caring, and she was giving me screenshots today of her watching it. So good little tie-in.
Awesome. But he was in that, and he's also he's in Ant-Man as Paul Rudd's wife's husband.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Cool. Heat up.
Yeah, I jumped on for Alan Dorfman, who I'm still not actually sure who was in the movie. I think he was a lawyer. He was at one point in one of the in the scenes when they're in jail talking, but he's Jake Hoffman. He plays Steve Madden in Wolf of Wall Street. Straight away I saw him and went, yeah, Scorsese thing. I'm sure I know you from Wolf of Wall Street. He's Steve Madden in Wolf of Wall Street.
Good. Simo?
I didn't actually have to jump on IMDb for these two, but I was really happy when I saw them. And I thought the reason why you bring me on this podcast is to bring my contemporary hip-hop culture knowledge.
I think we're going to have the same one.
So as soon as the Coffin Seller came on, I'm like, Action Bronson. He's here. He's a rapper. He does this show called Fuck That's Delicious. About food that they eat when he gets high and shit. So
We'll brought you on for that and your PS4 gaming knowledge as well. That's why we bring
so
you
if you want to check out the song Acting Crazy on Mr. Wonderful by
on.
Action
So
Bronson.
who was he?
He's a rapper.
No, but
he
was
was
he
the
in
Coffin
the
Seller,
Coffin
the big
Seller?
guy with the ginger beard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I looked him up too because I was like, oh, is that DJ Khaled?
No.
But I was like, oh, he's a rapper anyway, so that's all good.
Same thing.
And what is it? Crazy Joe. He's Sebastian Maniscalco, so he's a very famous stand-up comedian. If you're on Netflix, he's got about 4 up there.
Okay.
I did also get on for the nurse at the end that was looking after Frank.
Oh yeah, what?
Yeah.
No, I knew it because I.
Her name's Dasha Polanco, and she's from Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, because I
she
thought it
played
while I was watching
Dana
it.
Diaz,
Yeah.
I was like thinking Scrubs.
Yeah, I couldn't. I'm like, I know
Is
you.
that the nurse?
Because she was a nurse. Yeah.
I've seen this outfit before.
My mind's very literal. All right, questions. Any time for some questions that you want to ask us? We've asked each other quite a bit already, so I haven't got too much left.
I'm sorry, I actually do have quite a
Good.
few.
Hurry up, because I need a piss.
I know. Sorry. Why did?
Sorry.
I really do as
Frank-
well.
MJ, let's hold down the fort.
Yeah.
Why did Frank have a testimonial dinner?
For his union work, so
Yeah.
for going around, because he was put in charge of that
'Cause,
326.
and he got all those people there just for that. Or was there like a okay?
Because he was nice
yeah.
about doing what he did. They
Yeah.
showed that one scene where he goes and the guy's like, "Oh, here's your money." He's like, "No, I don't need it." So obviously everyone respected him for being
Okay.
an actual.
But I think the reason why they had the presentation and the reason why some of the people were there were different.
Yeah,
all
that's
the-
what I mean.
yeah.
Like I wasn't sure if there was a second meaning to it because it just didn't make sense that he would have something so big. But why are they in jail at the end? Is that because Hoffa had dirt on everyone that got released when he died? Basically, they killed Hoffa, and then every single person involved went to jail.
I think they really deep dived to try to pin Hoffa's murder, and like the reason why Hoffa was in jail originally and why Tony went to jail was that they pinned other stuff on them. that they found.
They thought they knew who was.
These
Yeah.
bugs tried to get him on other crap.
Yeah.
Because I kind of like the idea. Because remember when Hoffa was talking about they're going to hit you, and he's like, "Oh, they can't hit me. I got dirt on everyone." I was kind of hoping that was going to be involved in some way, but maybe not. No one ever kills Frank. Is it because he's well liked, or is it because he's unimportant and even forgotten?
Because Russ looked after him. Russ had his back.
Yeah, I reckon it was the fear of Russ.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fear of retribution from
I don't know.
Russ.
I feel like there's more than that. I feel like there's a sign of him not being that important. And I think that showed at the end where all these people died and all these people had these massive deaths, and everyone's like, Frank? Who's Frank?
Yeah.
Like, I kind of like that notion.
Cool.
There you go. Sorry, maybe I didn't have as many as I thought.
That's okay. Peter?
The only thing I was probably in the last few days seen a fair few kind of articles online just debating the length of the film and people saying, is it too long? Is it too short? Just what do you guys think of the
think
length?
it's too short.
Was it too? No, not too short. Sorry, not too short. But yeah, was it too long or was it just the right amount?
No, I don't think there's any scenes you take out.
That's the biggest thing, right? He literally didn't waste a scene.
Yeah.
No.
I think he doesn't waste the scene, but I think when you talked about, okay, the reason it's great that they went to Netflix is Martin Scorsese gets this opportunity to do whatever he wants. But in his previous, movies that are obviously quite critically acclaimed, he's had to kind of potentially work within a parameter that's a little bit more digestible.
Yeah, which is the idea of a movie, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
the reason that people watch movies instead of TV is because people can tell this great story in less than 2 hours. So
But do you
you're
think
right.
that just because we've gotten 3.5 hours and everyone seems to be pretty like it, like there's nothing we could have cut out? Like if it was 4 hours, people still be like, no, this is Scorsese.
Yeah,
We'll
and
just
if it was
watch
2 hours,
Yeah.
would you be like, great movie?
Yeah.
That
I
was-
think
that
you
was-
think you still would. Yeah.
How do you know?
I wouldn't be able to pinpoint any point in the
Yeah.
movie. I'm like, take that out.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
just the weight of it was 3.5. Could they have made it shorter? Some bits did come across slightly anticlimactic for me in parts, and I'm not going to point anyone's because there's already the argument that who are you? If Scorsese does it this way, then why are you to say anything different? But at the same time, like I think if something's 3.5 hours, you can make a debate for a movie the way people want to digest it. That it could potentially have been too long.
There's been a few 3-hour movies in the cinemas this year with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and It Chapter 2, so I mean, it's not like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Cool. Is this a payoff for Netflix based on the chat around it, or do they need an Oscar to solidify and say this was a payoff what we paid?
But the Oscar would be monumental,
Just for being a streaming.
being Netflix is going to be in the Oscar conversation for probably the foreseeable future.
As long as they kept splashing cash.
Exactly right. So, but this would be the first one, right? And this would be the game changer. And it's always like we need one. Roma was basically favourite almost leading up to the Oscars. So they still need to break that duck. It would be pretty monumental if they won it. I think it's. I can't talk whether it's worth the investment.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's a pretty bloody good call.
Cool. Last thing I had was, have any of you watched The Conversation with the 3 main cast and Scorsese on Netflix.
Yes. Nah, but that's all you had.
Yeah.
I did.
It's 23 minutes. It's worth watching.
So
it's
you know
just
what's
nice
so
to
good
sit there
about
and
it, right?
yeah.
Is we always talk and if Netflix ever wants to listen to Flix Forum, we say, with your original content, you should put those
Special
bonus features
yeah.
that you get on DVDs straight on the platform. So in this sense, that's kind of the sort of thing you'd get as a bonus on a DVD.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I enjoyed it,
Cool.
especially them talking about the cameras and,
Yeah.
and De Niro saying about 4 words throughout the whole thing.
De Niro said nothing.
But no, it was really good. And I want to see more of that content on Netflix originals.
Good. Are we ready to wrap this up?
Shit, man, I think we
I
are.
think we are. All right, so on Flix Forum, we each give a rating out of 5 to our film and give it an overall Flix Forum average. Heater, start us off.
Am I supposed to be calculating as well, or do you guys do that?
I can do
You're
it for
right
you
now.
if you want. If you, you
Sweet.
do it. You do it.
Yeah,
want
no,
me to do
it's a
Welcome
cool
back,
thing
do
that
it.
you do.
All right. I say, yeah, I love this film. It's right up my alley. I love mobster films, gangster films, especially one from Scorsese. The 3 leads were fantastic, and yeah, it was just a classic for me.
Good.
4.5.
4.5. Very nice. Simo.
I like this movie. I want to say that very clearly. I really did like this movie.
Why do you hate it?
But
But
What was wrong, Simo?
I like this. It's good.
no, just that there was just the weight of it. Like I felt relief almost getting through it. I more liked bits, and then the totality of it kind of really got me. And I thought that because we had this journey through of Frank and kind of saw him at the end and got to kind of piece together how he's had this life in the mob and his family. Like I thought it was really good, but like I don't know, I just struggled with some of my feelings afterwards, and I'm not sure if it's just this weight of everyone's like, this is a Scorsese epic, you need to like it. I felt a little bit kind of flat afterwards with the ending and where my thoughts were, and part of me wants to go back and watch it again.
Don't be ashamed.
But-
You watched the movie.
Yeah,
This is how you
you
felt.
give us what you think, yeah.
This is great.
I'm leaning. Can I go in between 3.5 and 4?
No.
Because
give us a 3.5.
all right, well, I'm
4.
definitely have to go to a 4, but it's a light 4, and there's just some things that I didn't take away from the scenes.
Great.
Leaving.
Don't feel like you
Don't
have to like it.
apologise,
That's what I was trying to say.
We don't have that big a fan base they're going to fanboy you and say.
Don't put this up on Letterboxd. They'll kill you.
Yes.
There was so much to like about this movie, but I didn't leave it feeling like, oh my god.
4 stars is a huge score, man. Like,
It's a light 4.
Awesome.
I think I gave The Babysitter 3.5, so I thought there's no way I can put The Irishman in the same. So
Babysitter was damn good.
MJ, your turn.
Man, this was a spectacle. It was appointment viewing, and I love that. As I said, gangster movies aren't really my cup of tea, so it would have had to have been extraordinary to get top marks from me. And I must say, despite the running time, it felt very rewatchable. And like anything, I think it's going to age really well with a lot of good chatter and potentially probably a swag of awards. Right now, it's 4 stars for me, but it was a truly impressive feature.
Nice. My turn. So, I thought this was excellent. Really, really enjoyed this. The performances, as we've spoken about, amazing. I thought the flow was really, really good for such a long film. Just to be able to keep you enticed and wanting to watch more, that you got to give credit to that. And I also really love the detail in this film. I thought the detail was excellent, and I'm giving it 5 out of 5.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 5. So, Heater, what does that give us as an average out of 5?
That's 4.38 out of 5.
Yeah.
Can I just say that's our first ever 5
Five,
star
that is our first
on
ever
Flix
fiver,
Forum.
yeah.
And then we're doing this one out of order, so we've done...
53 or something? 50?
Nah, we've done...
No, okay, 53.
54.
53.
That's our first 5er.
Yeah, and I'm happy to give this a 5 and stand by that. I think,
Yeah.
I explained why I like it too.
Absolutely.
Good. All right. Well,
Oi, best movie of the year?
this, I've got a couple of 5 stars this
I know
year.
you do.
Yeah,
That's
I do.
fine.
I haven't put together my
Okay,
my
we're
list.
gonna... I'll hold
I still need to watch Midsommar. Once I watch that, I'll get back to you. So, we are on social media. We're Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're at Flix Forum. Put posts up there. We're going to put a question with this post. And
We've got a catalogue of
Yeah,
50-odd films
films,
as
yeah.
well. If you've seen any Netflix originals, we do chat through them all.
Yeah, so please subscribe if you can. Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.
That'd be great.
Question with our post is going to be, what are your thoughts on the film? Just build some discussion on this
I like
film.
it.
Nothing specific.
I like it.
We have enjoyed having you guys along. Thanks for joining in on our discussion.
Thanks for having me.
It's
been good to be back.
It's been a long episode.
Thanks for our first 90+ minute episode.
Yeah.
If you aren't aware, at the moment it is December and we are doing Podmas, so we are putting out an episode every single day. So if you're listening to this later, go back, have a listen. But we are chucking out episodes every single day in December in the lead up to Christmas. Subscribe, download, help us out. It's been a pleasure, boys.
It's
Thank
been
you very
awesome.
much.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah,
No worries,
you're always
mate.
welcome
See
whenever
you,
you want.
boys.